South East Queensland and northern New South Wales are on cyclone watch for the first time in more than 3 decades, with tropical cyclone Alfred expected to turn towards the coast today. The system is still due to make landfall late on Thursday or early Friday as a Category 2 cyclone.
Millions of people from Bundaberg right down to Byron Bay are being told to prepare now for damaging to destructive winds and heavy to intense rainfall. Let's go straight to Emma, who is at SES headquarters in Kedron in Brisbane for us this morning. Emma, it's great to have you up there this morning. What's the latest?
Thank you, and good morning to you, and good morning to you all at home as well. So the latest is the State Disaster Coordination Group is meeting this morning. So they'll be looking at the latest modelling from the Bureau of Meteorology, talking about how they can coordinate their resources. They'll be talking about whether schools will need to shut, whether hospitals will need to go into an emergency situation. So at the moment, what we're seeing, as you mentioned, the tropical cyclone Alfred, it is a Category 2. Now, that happened just a couple of hours ago, and it is about 500 or so kilometres off the coast. It's still tracking away from the coast, but this afternoon we'll see it track towards the coast. Now, at this stage, it's tracking to make landfall Thursday night into Friday morning in Brisbane's northern suburbs. So already we have a lot of warnings in place. We have a coastal warning for a large part of the Queensland coast. The tropical cyclone watch is stretching from Sandy Cape in Queensland right down to Grafton. It doesn't take in Grafton though, but that's down in northern New South Wales. So we're talking about a really wide area. We're already seeing some big surf, and that is only going to continue and get worse. So at this stage, it's looking at three categories and 3 stages of this. So we're talking about the surf and the coastal erosion. We're talking about winds, and we're talking about flooding. So the winds will start to pick up tomorrow, damaging winds. They could then turn destructive as that cyclone comes closer. We're talking about hundreds of millimetres of rain, possibly for days as well, across a wide area. Of course, we're talking about flooding too from those storm surges and also from that rainfall. But just how residents are coordinating, I want to speak to Ari now. Ari, you've been chatting to residents. What are they telling you, and what are they doing to prepare for this?
Yeah, well, residents are really sort of taking these warnings quite seriously, and really it is turning into sort of this all hands on deck situation. A lot of preparation has gone underway, and sandbagging has really become a key issue. A lot of local residents have told the ABC that there have been a number of locations across the southeast that have sort of run out of sandbagging equipment, so that is a major concern as we get closer to Thursday. But of course, there is a lot of trauma that's been associated with past major flooding events, including the likes of 2022. So a lot of residents are really sort of getting onto the front foot of this and really getting prepared nice and early. We've already seen across several supermarkets that shelves have really had their stock wiped out, and that's another concern. But again, the Premier has reinforced the message that and asked supermarkets to make sure those shelves are continuously stocked as we get closer to Thursday. But again, with the fact that there is a lot of elements playing in this tropical cyclone, and as tropical cyclone Alfred sort of makes its way towards the coast, there is a lot of concern about what will happen in the days afterwards, particularly with this huge rain depression that is forecast. We could see anywhere between 200 to 400 millimetres of rainfall, so that is going to be quite significant. And it's not just going to impact southeast Queensland, it's also going to leach into northern New South Wales. So it really is having both states sort of on high alert as we get closer to Thursday, Emma. Yeah, absolutely. So of course the advice to residents is make sure you've got battery powered radios, torches, make sure you do stock up on non-perishables as well, and make sure you listen to all that advice from the Bureau and also the state emergency services as well.
Thanks very much, Emma. Really timely advice there for the hundreds and thousands of people affected in those regions. Let's go back to breaking news overnight in Melbourne now, with residents in Richmond waking up to advice warnings as toxic smoke surrounds them from a factory fire there. Our reporter Stephanie Ferrier joins us now from the scene in Richmond. Good morning to you, Steph. Take us through what happened.
Good morning, Bridget. Well, behind me at the moment, they've just finished mopping up by the looks of it. Just a short time ago, they had an aerial appliance spraying into the collapsed roof of this disused warehouse here in Richmond in Melbourne's inner east. And we heard from a couple of neighbours that were in this area around 2:30 this morning, including James Amitsbowl. Now, he says that he woke up to the sounds of what he thought was construction workers starting very very, very early with angle grinders. He peeked out his window and he was absolutely amazed at the sight. This is what he had to say.
I peeked behind the curtains and the whole street was lit up. This thing was enormous. There were 6 or 7 trucks just blasting it with water. Angle grinders cutting the fence down so the trucks can get through. 30-odd blokes running around. It was chaos. I sort of, I sat there and watched it for 30 or so minutes.
That's James Amitsbowl, and he says luckily those flames were going straight up, so was the smoke. He says the flames were up to 60 metres high, and there was actually a smoke alert that was issued for a 2-kilometre radius around this area for residents to keep their windows closed and to monitor conditions. But we've also spoken to the Deputy Chief Fire Officer, Jamie Hansen. He says that it took about 2 hours to control this blaze. They had at least 80 firefighters as well as 35 appliances here, and at one stage they feared that one of the main walls of this 20 by 30 metre warehouse was going to collapse, and they had to pull back some of the firefighters. This is what he had to say about the very tricky operation to bring it under control.
Due to the severity of the fire and the intensity inside, crews weren't able to make entry, and also the risk of structural collapse. So initial reports were that there were several exposures to this building that were under threat, but our firefighters made a really, really good, aggressive attack on that fire and prevented any further spread from the structure of origin.
That's Deputy Chief Fire Officer Jamie Hansen, and he says that they used some high technology drones as well that we saw hovering in the sky when we first arrived here earlier this morning, and that actually used thermal imaging to help pinpoint the exact areas of hotspots so that those aerial appliances could really douse them. Now we've got some of the investigators that are down and they are yet to determine the cause of this blaze.
Huge fire there, Steph. Thanks very much for the update just down the road from us, really, not far at all. A very built-up area as well there in Richmond, so we hope that everyone is okay with all of that smoke there.
Now, Charles is here. There's been some more concerning news about the Pope overnight.
Yeah, there has been, James. Pope Francis has suffered a concerning health setback as he continues to battle pneumonia in Rome's Gemelli Hospital. The Vatican announced overnight that the Pope has suffered 2 episodes of acute respiratory insufficiency. The Pontiff has now spent 18 nights in hospital after being admitted with bronchitis on February 14. Firefighters have managed to contain a warehouse blaze that ignited in Melbourne's inner east overnight. About 80 firefighters were dispatched to the incident shortly after 2 a.m. with an advice message issued for multiple suburbs due to the smoke. Authorities have not yet determined the cause of the fire. The dire state of the Whyalla Steelworks has been laid bare, with staff claiming a lack of spending on plant maintenance saw it rely on luck for safety. The first creditors meeting has been told the plant accumulated more than $1.3 billion in debt before it was placed in administration. It's hoped operations will be stabilised within 6 weeks, but it could take more than a year to find a new long-term owner. Northern Territory advocates say the community has become too complacent regarding family violence and that the rest of Australia considers the Territory out of sight, out of mind. There have already been 3 alleged family violence-related murders in the Territory this year, the most recent an alleged stabbing in Darwin over the weekend. A senior defence official who last week contradicted government claims about a $10 billion naval shipbuilding project will step down from his position next month. Last week, Deputy Secretary Jim McDowell told Parliament a decision on whether Japan or Germany would build Australia's new general-purpose frigate fleet was not expected to be made until next year. Defence Minister Richard Marles quickly rejected the claim, insisting a winner would be named before Christmas. Speed limits on suburban streets in Victoria would be slashed to 30 kilometres an hour under a key recommendation by the state's infrastructure body. The draft report by Infrastructure Victoria says the change would have little effect on travel times, but would make a huge difference to road safety. The comedy drama Anora has swept the 2025 Academy Awards, taking home 5 Oscars, including Best Picture. The film also won awards for editing, directing and Best Original Screenplay.